Okay, I think we can get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's Global Bites session. If you're willing to unmask your cameras, I think that might be nice for us to see you. And as far as microphones, you may keep it muted until you have some kind of question to ask Katerina. But welcome everyone. I want to thank Katerina Fella for presenting today. This is actually our third Global Bites seminar of the fall 2021 semester, but it's the first one that is with a Return Peace Corps volunteer. Our Global Bites seminars were actually set up in order to showcase our Return Peace Corps volunteers. We have a special fellowship program at the University of Pennsylvania where we partner with the Peace Corps to we have a particular love for having Return Peace Corps volunteers in our school, and Katerina is one of them. So as you all know, Katerina served in community health as a Peace Corps volunteer in Ghana, in Upper West region. Yes. And I think she'll tell us all about geography and the meaning of the Peace Corps and the actual work she did. And I believe she has a couple of co-Return Peace Corps volunteers on this call, or maybe they're still serving, I'm not sure. So maybe they'll chime in with some information as well. So this should be lots of fun. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Katerina, who is by the way, she is our second degree student. I think, are you sub-matriculating also, Katerina?
Yeah, it's the midwifery program.
Okay, so once she completes her second degree nursing program, she hopes to go into midwifery, and that will be great. Okay, it's all yours.
Okay, give me one moment to share. Okay. All right, is that okay? Can everybody see it? Okay, so thank you, Nancy, for the introduction. So my name is Katerina Fella, and I serve in Peace Corps Ghana. So I get this asked a lot, what is the Peace Corps? So the Peace Corps is an independent organization that's run by the United States government. It was actually passed first through executive order in 1961 by JFK, and then it was authorized by Congress in September of 1961. So I'm just gonna move this, sorry. So Peace Corps has a mission, and this mission has 3 goals. So the first one is to help the people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained men and women, which is great, but I think what makes Peace Corps amazing are the next 2 goals, which is to help promote a better understanding of Americans on the part of the people served, and to help promote a better understanding of other peoples on the part of Americans. So this photo here to my left is my entire cohort. We all met in Washington, D.C. before we took a flight to Accra the next day to begin our service. I believe we started off with about 24 volunteers. Oh, sorry. All right, so why Ghana? So prior to my Peace Corps service, I was working in a lab in Boston, and once a week I was working at AIDS Action Committee, where I was working with patients that were impacted by HIV and AIDS. And working there, I fell in love with public health. And as much as I loved working in a lab, I kind of wanted to venture out and experience a new culture. So Peace Corps was perfect. I actually applied to Ghana because of the program that it offered. So it offered the opportunity to work in HIV and AIDS, but also in child and maternity health, malaria prevention, which I think malaria and hepatitis B were probably the biggest issues that I saw when I was over there, and water and sanitation as well. So we arrived in Ghana in February of 2018, and we all were kind of gathered up together, and we were brought to the Eastern region. As you can see here on the map, Ghana is broken up into, now I believe it's 16 regions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we were in the Eastern region, and when we all train, we're all placed together in one community, and each of us stays with an individual host family. So this is a way for us to kind of integrate into the community and learn about Ghanaian culture. We also learn about the language. We also gain a lot of technical skills here. And I really like this 3-month period because I was still living among other Americans, and it was a good in between from, leaving home and slowly adjusting into a real community. So this is me in this photo, and I'm walking back from class. All right, so again, what is training like? So we receive a lot of community health training. We receive language training, and the language that I learned was Wale. That's because I was gonna be placed in the Upper West region, and the majority of people in Upper West, or where I was, were from the Wala tribe. We discussed cultural sensitivity training, diversity training, core training, safety and security instructions. We received some medical training, monitor and valuation training. And like I said before, we were fully immersed in Ghanaian culture. We also were trained on how to start a garden. So farming is a huge major source of income in Ghana, and it really goes hand in hand with food security and nutrition. So we were taught how to garden and how to set that up. So that's me there. Okay, so like I said before, we gained a lot of technical skills. This is my cohort, and we're learning how to make a soakaway pit. Basically, this helps running water run into the ground, so it's not sitting out in the open. But training was also fun. So we did a lot of events together, especially on the weekends. We were given the opportunity to just go out and explore. And this is my cohort here, and we are celebrating March 6th, which is Ghanaian Independence Day. And it's pretty cool. All the schools kind of get together and they march to celebrate. So we went to see that. Again, this is training. As you can see, some of my friends are tired. So training went all day. And also we got to learn some sign language, which is what I'm showing here. This is Gerard and Besa, and we were just learning the basics. Okay, so once you complete your Peace Corps training, they make you test out of the language. So you test out of language and you get tested on your technical skills. And then once you pass, you're sworn in as a Peace Corps volunteer. So I was sworn in April 19th of 2018. This is a photo of my friend Dwayne. As you can tell, he's very excited that he's going to be stuck with me in the Upper West region. So we're both heading up to our sites. So where was I going to next? Like I said, I was going to the Upper West. I was in a community a little bit outside of Wa. So Wa is the capital of the Upper West region. This is not a photo of my community. This is a photo of Wa, the capital of the Upper West. All right, so what was it like living in a new culture? And now I'm alone, and I just learned the language, so it's fresh. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my interaction with a lot of the locals and the friends that I made in my community. So I put this African proverb on my slide because I think it's really important, and it really speaks about Ghanaian culture. So it says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. And if you want to go far, you go together. So something that was very different for me as an American was how communal Ghanaian culture is. And the moment that I moved in to my community, to Nyoli, I was never alone. I remember the first couple of days, people were bringing me food because I didn't have my kitchen set up. The kids were like peeking through my windows. I always had somebody around me, which I think is great and something we can learn from. I was a stranger and I was just accepted into this community. So here on the left is me at a funeral, and the women are showing me how to cook. So as you can see, there's firewood, and I think I'm stirring okra stew. So the way that a funeral works in the community is when somebody dies, everybody that day drops what they're doing. They don't go to farm, they don't go to work, none of that. And everyone comes together and they help prepare for the funeral. So in this photo, we're cooking for the entire community. and which I think is pretty amazing. And then here in the right is a photo of me and Alafa, and she is one of the nurse's daughters, and we are celebrating Eid, and it's the end of Ramadan, and we have matching dresses. So these are some other photos of some people that I was really close with. As a Peace Corps volunteer, you quickly learn that the kids are going to be your best friends. They helped me with Wale, with learning the language a little better, and I helped them with English, and they taught me all their games. So this is a game called Ampe. I have a video on the next slide, so I hope that works so I can show you. Again, this is another event where the women are all coming together and everyone brings maize and they're cooking, and I believe they're stirring teas, which is really cool to see. And here is Thomas. And Thomas is my counterpart. I don't think I would have been able to do any of my work without him. So Peace Corps finds a counterpart for you and they work with you in the community. And he was well respected. So anytime we had to go to the chief to ask something, or we wanted to hold a community meeting, or anytime, we had product ideas, he was kind of the one that I went to. And he did most of the work. All right, so let's see if this plays. So this is Ampe, the game that I was showing you guys that the girls were playing. So I guess this is part of the second and third mission of Peace Corps. This is an exchange of culture. So the girls are showing me how to play Ampe, and I showed them how to do puzzles. All right, so let's see if this works. So that's commonly played. And then this is them doing puzzles. The kids love doing puzzles and my mom would send them to me. So whenever they showed me their homework, I would give them a puzzle. And they were always so excited to show off how they finished it. Oh, sorry, there you go. All right. So this is another part of the community I was in. This is the chop lady, or this is what you would call, that's what it's called. So it's where you go for food. So this was my breakfast spot. So you go and you get porridge and kind of this donut. It was round. I forgot the name. But you would eat that for breakfast. And I thought this video was really cool to show you as well. I'm sure some of you guys have tried jollof before. So it's a common Ghanaian dish. And when they're making it, this is how they grind up a lot of the vegetables for cooking. So I think that's pretty cool. At my last clinical, one of the nurses was Ghanaian, and she actually helped me locate one of these here in Ghana. I mean, here in Philly at a Ghanaian store. All right, see if I can go. All right, so where did I get my food if I wasn't buying it from the chop stops? So I was really fortunate. The community I was in was a market town. So once every 6 days, everybody from around the community would come and they would sell things that they, kind of grew at farm, whether it was tomatoes, onions, fruits, vegetables, beans, rice. Women would sell the baskets that they wove. You could buy Ghanaian cloth here. And this is really important. It'll come into play when I talk about a lot of the health work that we did, because this was a really good time where a lot of other communities would come into Newly. So this is a little bit of what market day looked like. So I can play this. Asama. ABSN ka kambo. Hello. Hi. So as you can see, you could also buy some livestock. Another thing that I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning, that I had a hard time with and that I learned really fast in Ghana was one of the big things is greeting. So you heard me greet one of my community members in Wale. So if you pass by a friend or family member or anybody that you know, it is really disrespectful to just walk by them and not greet them and not ask them how they are doing. So that's what you heard me doing in the video. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit of the projects that I did. And before I do that, I kind of want to talk about the water situation in Nyoli. So I wrote, water is our most precious resource. And so this is where we got the water in Nyoli. This was two dams, and they were at the bottom of the hill. And basically how it worked was you would bring down a large basin and you would fill it up, and then you would bring it up and you would use it for cooking, typically for cleaning, for bathing, and anything that you need water for. So that's how you got your water. But the thing with this was that these two dams were at the bottom of the hill in the community. So this will go into a little bit of my big primary project that I worked on. So water and sanitation. So before conducting any projects in Peace Corps, we're kind of trained to just go off what the community wants. Like, we never go in and tell people like this is what they need. These are community members, they live there. They know better about what they want and what the community needs. So we held a community meeting with Tommy, and the community came to a consensus that the biggest thing that the community needed was latrines. So the community I was in had about 2,500 people. And I believe when we did our survey, only 20% of them had access to a toilet or a latrine. So open defecation was a big problem. And that has to do as well with the water that we were using, because it was at the bottom. So when it would rain, it would just run off. And this isn't just a big problem in rural areas where I was in the Upper West. I found something on the UN's website that said that 892 million people continue to practice open defecation. And I'm sure you can imagine the health issues that come along with that. So actually, this is one of the UN Sustainability Development Goals. I think it's number 6. All right, so these are the latrines that we built. And the way that the project worked was I applied with a grant through Water Charity and UNICEF, and it was accepted and fully funded. So I don't know how to build a latrine. So what I did was I went out and I sought a NGO, a Ghanaian NGO, and their role was really to teach masons and carpenters in other communities how to construct a latrine. And you'll see that in a lot of the work that I did, it was just me bridging the right people or bringing the right people together. So he came in and he trained these 6 masons and carpenters about how to construct a latrine. And all of the materials that we used, you could easily find in the community that I was in. So the grant that we got only allowed us to build 46 latrines. And I still talk to my counterpart today, and he tells me that they're still fully used. And these masons and carpenters actually have made a business out of this. So people will hire them out now to construct latrines, which is great because I think they're generating income, and they worked really hard. So I'm glad that they're using that. All right, and then I had a few other projects. So I think this was my favorite project. This was my girls' empowerment club. And we met up once a week, and it was girls between the ages of 13 and 18. And I had about 30 girls, a little more, a little less, that would show up every Friday. And we talked about whatever they wanted to talk about. We talked about malaria. We talked a lot about nutrition. We talked a lot about sanitation. We talked a lot about STIs. Teen pregnancy was a big issue. So we talked about teen pregnancy. I brought a woman who was Ghanaian and spoke Wale to really talk to the girls about contraceptives and STIs. As you can see here, we're talking about HIV and also empowerment, right? Like, how important is education? Because you'll see, I'll talk a little bit later that there's a lot of barriers that a lot of the girls face in a rural area in Upper West with going to school. So I really enjoyed this, and I grew very, very, very close to a lot of the students that I was with. All right, this is my other favorite project, and this is a chance for me to introduce Fati. Fati is the woman in the center to the left photo with the orange shirt holding up a peace sign, and everyone around her are nurses. So I met Fatih one day when I was out, and Fatih works for an NGO that subsidizes contraceptives, but also offers education. So again, like I thought, how perfect is this? Like I met somebody, she's so open, she speaks the language, she's so knowledgeable about contraceptives. And the community I'm in has this one maternity clinic and they serve within a 30-mile radius. So we brought her in, and every market day she would come and she would go from table to table. She would talk to women about the contraceptives that the clinic offered. And she would go over myths with them. Like a lot of it was women were scared, they didn't want to lose infertility. A lot of them just had so many questions, and she was able to kind of exchange that knowledge with them. So I did that with her for a little bit of time, and then I have photos and more of her discussing a little bit later, but this is another one of my projects. As you can see, I really liked working with the adolescents in the community. I just had a really good time with them. So I started a school health education program with this school that I was in, and I would go once a week and talk about health issues. So students, sorry, Maria, can you mute your, I can hear Lou, can you mute your?
Yeah, sorry, he just woke up from his nap.
It's okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, that's my sister and my little nephew, Lou, he's so cute. So I got the chance to talk and teach with the students. And in the bottom left photo here, I'm showing the girls had to make reusable menstrual pads or rumps. And this was great because this was also a big issue. Once a month when the girl got their period, a lot of them didn't really have anything that they could use. So they would either stay home or they would use rags. So we all gathered the remaining cloth that we had, and we used and we made reusable menstrual pads. Up here in the top left photo, we really wanted to break some gender roles or norms. So we had the boys in the school have a cooking contest. So usually it was expected that the girl was gonna cook, but we had the boys compete with each other and we all saw who had the best dish. And this is me with all the students. My last day before I left, we all took a photo together. All right, so those are some of my projects, but I really want to highlight some of the amazing women that I met during my service, because they really are doing a lot for their communities, and I think it's just great because they do also face a lot of other barriers. So there is a famous Ghanaian saying that says, if you educate a man, you educate an individual, but if you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. This famous quote describes women's role in Ghanaian society. Women in Ghana have had a major impact in Ghanaian society as mothers, health workers, farmers, politicians, pharmacists, and entrepreneurs, to mention a few. In rural Ghana, many girls have a lot of responsibilities from an early age. Many will wake up early to fetch water, to cook and sweep, all before attending class. And when girls return after school, they assist their families before having time to study for class. So just as mothers here in America, Ghanaian women take on many roles beyond motherhood. And I wanted to shed a light on some of these amazing women that inspire me every day in my community and introduce you to them as individuals. So this is Madam Aisha too, and she was the only assembly woman amongst a bunch of assembly men in the Upper West region. So she was elected by the community to kind of go and talk about the community's needs. So she was a politician, but also she made, as you can see, her holding kente cloth. And this is kente cloth, mostly from the northern region. The southern or the Ashanti kente cloth looks a little different. So she would weave this cloth and sell it. But what made her so great was she would also show other women how to make this cloth as a way for them to generate income. So she kind of was doing all of these things. And she also owned a store. She's sitting right now in front of her store. So she was doing all of these things, and she was a mother. She had 6 kids. So she was doing a lot. This is Fati. I talked about her a little earlier with the contraceptives and with the NGO Lydia. So Fati was a little different from a lot of women, I want to say, that I met in a conservative rural community. She was very open, and she was very comfortable talking about, reproductive and sexual health and contraceptives and all of this. So I did ask Fati when we became pretty close, like why she was so different from a lot of her peers. And she told me that she got pregnant when she was in high school. And she never learned about safe sex and preventative methods in school. So this was something that she really was passionate about. And she said that she had health classes in school, her outcome would have been different. So this is Fati on market day. And she's talking to the ladies here about what the clinic now offered in terms of contraceptives and answering any of their questions. Right, and this is Madame Salama. She was, I think, one of the best seamstress in the Upper West region. She also made it kind of a thing to really show other women in the community how to sew. So in Ghana, which is something I wish we had here, you can go and you pick out cloth and you go bring it to a seamstress, and she takes your measurements, and she'll make you anything, dresses, pants. So as you can see some of her garments there in the back and how beautiful the cloth is. And this also goes back, Madame Salama had polio when she was younger. So she couldn't help her family out on the farm, but she learned how to sew because another woman in her community showed her how to sew. So as you can see, the knowledge is continuously passed down. All right, and so this is Rose and my best friend during my service, Lucy. Me and Lucy, so Lucy is the lady in the white dress. She was my age and we became very close. She was my neighbor. And this is us, and we're preparing dinner together. And this is Rose, and Rose was also a nurse in the clinic. And she also lived in the same compound. Okay, so those were some of my close friends, but I get asked all the time about how Peace Corps or my Peace Corps experience was. So I found this online and I really liked it. Another Peace Corps volunteer said, people join the Peace Corps hoping to make an impact on the communities they serve. However, volunteers are often surprised to find that the impact their communities have had on them, has been the greatest contributor to making this the toughest job you'll ever love. So this is a photo of me saying goodbye to the students that you met earlier in the slide. So I was actually evacuated from my service. I didn't get to complete my 27 months because of some issues going on in Burkina and because the community I was in was right on the border. So I had 2 hours to kind of pack my things, and I ran to the school and I said goodbye to all of the students that I worked with. Okay, so I can't talk about my Peace Corps service without mentioning my dog. So I did buy a dog at market day. You saw some of the animals for $3. So this is Mickey, and I bought Mickey on a whim. There was a man there selling his puppies, and he showed me him, and I thought he was the cutest thing. And the kids thought it was so funny that I treated Mickey like a family member, and I had a collar on him and I would walk him around with a leash. They just thought it was the funniest thing. So this is Mickey here to the left when we arrived in the US, and that is Mickey with another Peace Corps volunteer when he was a puppy. And that's my dad. When I told my parents that I bought another dog, I don't know how thrilled they were. So Aquaba Mama Fella, something that I'm really glad that I got to experience was my mom coming to Ghana to visit. So this is my mom in the community. This is my mom on the left. She's kind of sweeping the compound, which is something because it gets so windy and dusty. You do twice a day. This is my mom and Madam Aisha too, the assemblywoman, was showing her how to weave. And up here in the other corner, you'll see Madam Aisha too, and she gifted my mom kente cloth when she came to visit. Lastly, I couldn't not mention the relationships that you have with other Peace Corps volunteers are very, very different, I think. I try to attend the Peace Corps events here in Philly, but these are some of the Peace Corps friends that for my cohort who came to visit me in Boston. That's Swain and Casey. And then this is Raina and Caroline, and I'm so happy that I have them here in Philly. I didn't know that they were going to be here. Caroline is an MPH student here at Penn, and Raina is also thinking about joining an accelerated nursing program and becoming a midwife as well. So this is us in the corner and Center City. Okay, so that's my presentation. So in Wale, we say barka, which is thank you, or medase in Twi, and thank you. And I did want to mention this. So I showed you guys rural Ghana, but this here as well is also Ghana. That is Accra, and that is the capital. And Accra is beautiful and it's a fun time. So if you are looking to go visit, I definitely recommend. So that's it.
That's fantastic, Katerina. I forgot to tell everyone that they could put questions in chat, but I think we can certainly open up right here. I have hundreds of questions, but I'm going to let others ask theirs, and because I'll track you down in the future.
Yeah.
So if you all want to use, but I will actually, there's just one question I'm going to start it off with. So while you all collect your thoughts, and that is that one of those final slides you said about the toughest job you'll ever love. And I think that's also when you got teary-eyed because you had to leave. And it's so normal, and it almost started me crying too. Because I think I understand something about that. You're so close to people, and then you're supposed to just disappear to your safety, and knowing you're leaving people behind who will not be safe necessarily, which is another whole issue about foreigners being in a country. Anyway, it looks like you accomplished so much. I've seen lots of a range of what Peace Corps volunteers can and cannot do. You seem to have accomplished amazing, even 46 latrines sounds like an awful lot to me. So what was the toughest part for you, other than leaving? Tell us something about your challenges and any times of despair. Also, when you first arrived, you said 24 people were in your cohort. How many made it through? How many failed their WALE tests? And tell us about that.
Okay, so I don't think anyone failed the language test. I think they just kind of making it a little intimidating. So I will say that Caroline actually completed all the way through. So I don't know. Caroline, do you remember how many people finished?
Yeah, I think it was about 7.
Yeah.
No, 7 out of 24?
I think a lot of us were evacuated because they evacuated the entire Upper West and Upper East region.
But how many months into, who didn't make it through the first 6 months, for example?
So I remember somebody left during training, and then a few people left before mid-service. And then a lot of us left during evacuation. I don't know, Caroline, did anyone leave? I don't know if anyone left after we got evacuated. But I read something somewhere one time that only 25% of Peace Corps volunteers make it the 27 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not easy. And I think that goes in with your question of like, what is the hardest? So I remember in my Peace Corps interview, they kept being like, are you okay not having running water? Like, are you okay? You might not have electricity. But when you get there, you realize like after a while, you kind of adjust to all that stuff. like you adjust to fetching your water, you adjust to not having electricity for long periods of time. I think the really difficult part is really like accepting like certain things as being part of like the government, or the like something that's beyond what you can do to help. That's really difficult and really like heartbreaking to see. And also like seeing, like I would go to a cross say, and then I would go back to the real community that I was in, and you just see this major large gap in social like economic status, and that was really difficult to be a part of. Or like I would come home, I remember coming home for Christmas time and people are running around like buying all these gifts and just worrying about things. I don't know. That was, at least for me personally, like that was the hardest thing to be a part of. Yeah.
Thanks, Katerina. Anybody want to jump in with a question or comment? You have lots of appreciation in the chat box.
Thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it so much.
Hi, I have a question. First of all, I want to say, Kat, that was a great presentation, and it sounds like the most amazing experience. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit. You mentioned that you were still in contact with like your like Peace Corps partner. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about like the continuum of like community care. Like, did you know the Peace Corps volunteers before you? Did you know them after you? Like, and do the projects stay the same over like 10 years, or is it different every 27 months?
That's actually a really good question, Emily. So I was the first volunteer in the community that was in, but usually the Peace Corps tries to do like 3 volunteers. And I think it's usually within the same sector. So some other volunteers say like came in as the 2nd Peace Corps volunteer or the 3rd Peace Corps volunteer. And I think for a lot of them, maybe they'll continue the project that the other volunteer started, because it should technically be based off like what the community wants to do. So for example, like if a volunteer came after me, they may continue building latrines or, you know, working on sanitation. And in terms of with Thomas, so Tommy told me that they are still using and building more latrines. Like a lot of the masons and carpenters now have like they'll go out and they'll be like, all right, I'll build a latrine for you for this much money. So they are still doing that, and the community was aware that that was a problem, and that's what they needed. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Yeah, thanks. Does anybody else have any more questions?
Or comments. If people don't jump in, I'm gonna. Oh, there's Cassis just unmuted. Maybe he's got something to say.
Yes.
Katerina, thank you really for your service. As you were presenting,
Cassis, maybe let folks know, those who don't know you, let them know sort of where you come from.
Oh, my name is Cassis. I'm a BSN PhD student here at Penn, but I'm also from Ghana, and I've done a lot of work in Ghana in the area of public health, nursing, and also sign language. So I could relate a lot to the things that Katerina shared today, and it brought back a lot of memories. And I'm so grateful for people like you who actually go in there and try to be part of the community. I think one of the key things that I've actually recognized in your presentation, you keep referring to these people as my community, my community.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's such it's weird to say this, but it doesn't make you an outsider. It makes I almost feel like you're a Ghanaian, and it's such a beautiful thing to hear you say. So thank you for your service, and hopefully as we continue on this journey, we'll get to do more great stuff in Ghana.
Thank you. That was one of the nicest comments. No, I appreciate that a lot. And when I was in Nyoli, I never felt like an outsider. I don't know, Ghanaians are just so welcoming. Like there was never, if I needed something, like there's always somebody there to help. And I think, like I said before, like that community aspect is such a big part of the culture.
So, oh, good. Haja.
Yeah, Katerina, I just wanted to say excellent presentation, and I agree with, I forget the gentleman's name, but it was such a humble presentation. And, you know, these presentations, you can sort of be wary of them because of the idea of like, you know, an outsider going into community, but it seems that you integrated, you became part of the community, and it was just such a humble experience from what I could tell. Great job.
Thank you so much, Haja. Everyone, this is my academic advisor. I talk about you all the time. So.
Yeah, I should let everyone know it's kind of unusual. First, we've got a really nice turnout for this session. And although we normally have Global Bites seminars in person with a nice lunchtime meal, I really think it's wonderful to have this opportunity for Katerina to be able to invite family and friends who may not be located in Philadelphia. So I'm thrilled that they all came and got to witness some of your fabulous accomplishments, though I'm sure they know about them already. One of the questions I have until somebody else breaks in here is the reality of everyday life for you. I mean, you showed us collecting water, but you didn't show us your home and what you have to do on a daily basis just to kind of survive. And I don't know if everyone made the leap from seeing that collection of water in a basin to what you actually might have had to do for boiling water or storing food. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your everyday life and whether you had a little home with a latrine or not?
Yeah, that's a good question. I should have put a photo up. So I was in the nursing compound. So the nurses recognize the importance of, like having a latrine. So we had one, and I had one as well that I would just like separately use. So we did have a latrine. In terms of water, so I had a big container in the place that I was staying in. So I would fetch water and dump it into the container until it filled up. And then this would probably last me like a week or two, because it was only me using it. But like you have to remember, a lot of times it was like a family doing this, so the water would go by a lot quicker. In terms of drinking water, you could buy like little baggies for 20 pesos, and you would just like rip off the side. It kind of looked like a Ziploc bag, and then you could just chug the water. So that was that. For cooking, I use like I bought like a propane tank kind of thing, and like it kind of like screwed a little thing on the top, and then I would use that to cook and everything like that.
So I was in Ghana, and I remember the marketplace littered with those little plastic bags. Yes. Which again, another thing for people to think about. And then people burn that plastic. Yeah. Right, on roadside fires. And so there's so many challenges in these environments, just so people who might not be thinking, I think about these kind of everyday things as very big issues. And I can't imagine you drinking all your water from these little 5-cent bags. Maybe you did. Because most people I would think would be filtering and boiling or something. How sick did volunteers get? And you've got other volunteers, I think, visiting on our meeting today. Maybe people can talk about gastrointestinal challenges if there were any.
Yeah, I don't know if Caroline, I think Raina is here too. I don't know if they ever got like really sick, because I was using the sachets. But I know a lot of community members, like diarrhea was normal. Raina, are you in the car?
I'll share, yeah. So we all got, I'm Raina, and I served with Kat in Ghana, a different community, obviously. But Peace Corps supplied us with a gravity type filter that we had, what were they called? Like we screwed in things to this filter, and it essentially like took out sediment and other sizes of particles. But the water itself still wasn't that clean. It depended on the community you were in. So my community, the water, even though they had boreholes, was still pretty dirty. So I did get giardia, and I got really sick one night. it's basically very common for Peace Corps volunteers to have diarrhea throughout their entire service. It's true. But yeah, that's my experience.
Thanks, Raina.
Oh,
Raina also brought back a dog.
Oh, and I'm going to share with folks too. My son was a Peace Corps volunteer who didn't make it through his service in Paraguay. And he tried to bring a dog back, but he doesn't have a mom as understanding as your dad is, Kat. So there was no dog came back. He had to find someone who would take over the responsibility for his dog. So your parents should be lauded, I suppose, for being way kinder than I am.
The dog caused some issues. Yeah, I did, but
yeah. But I think, you know, again, for those of us interested in public health, and I don't know what Cassis might think about this also, there is a phenomenon a lot of times for not just Peace Corps volunteers, but folks who live in places where safe drinking water is not easily available, where sanitation is not easily available. There are people, many people in the world who do not know what formed stool is. That it's not part of their life experience. Even folks living in country to have solid stool. It's just, these are, again, I'm getting into nitty gritty that nobody maybe wants to hear about, but I think it's important for us to understand the challenges that people have all over the world. I'm also surprised about the latrines that people were asking for them, because there are many development stories in the world about, again, enforced latrines, you know, where they become like a storage unit versus used for, because maintenance of the latrine is also very important. Katerina, did you learn anything about that? How do you keep it being a place where people want to go and use it? A place that isn't dirty and smelly, and, you know, where it's much more agreeable to be in the outdoors than being into this, like, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I think that happens a lot of times with other aspects too, like development. People build a clinic or like a school, or a latrine, but no one's there to, like you said, take care of it. That happened with our school latrine, but with the household latrines, we did go and from house to house and check them after and kind of teach people, you know, how to keep it clean. So the wood ash that you saw that a lot of the women were cooking with, the wood, we would tell them to collect the wood ash and then throw it down the latrine. And that was going to kind of help with like the smell and keeping everything clean. So that was what ProNet, the NGO that came in and trained the masons and carpenters, that's what they kind of recommended doing, and kind of just like keeping the area around the latrine clean and having the door, like keeping it shut and things like that. But yeah, that was a big fear too of Peace Corps, of, you know, these latrines becoming storage units. But the way that we did it, like, I think the community wanted latrines, so they recognized the importance of them. So I think I was lucky in that regard.
Great.
I have a question.
Oh, Emily.
Hi, Megan. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit. So you said you were the first Peace Corps volunteer in like that community. How does like the Peace Corps coordinate with that? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so I believe also I think Casey's here too, another volunteer. So you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. So they have somebody that's like designated to go out into these communities. I think the community applies for a Peace Corps volunteer, and then someone from Peace Corps goes out and they look at the community and they see if like it's a good fit for volunteers, because they kind of interview you before they place you into that community. So they do that, and then I think like based off safety and all of that, they'll continue to put another volunteer there.
Hey, Kat, did you ever feel any pressure, like you were like the only representative of like the government or the Peace Corps, or if do you understand what I'm saying? Or
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question, Mike. And I think a lot of the other volunteers probably felt this too, because I think I was the first American that the community I was in was exposed to. So I was kind of nervous that people would assume the way I was the way all other Americans were. Is that what you mean, Mike?
Well, yeah, or just more so like, because I guess some of the rural places, right? Like, like you mentioned, you were the first American ever there. Like, were you not that you were, but were the pressures of or ever felt like you had to represent the Peace Corps as a whole, or almost like the U.S. government? I've just read about the Peace Corps. I don't know much about it, but in some of the things they talked about was this pressure of kind of having to represent the U.S. government, or being a State Department agent or something. Not so much so, but
no, that's actually a really good question. Yeah, so you do feel that pressure, like I was saying before. If I ever get nervous, or if I ever got upset or something, I didn't want people to think that this is how all other Americans are. So I think that's how I felt. I don't know if other people felt any different, but I know what you're saying.
okay.
No, it's very true. It is true.
Can I say something?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah.
Sorry. So there's 3 missions of Peace Corps, and one of them is to teach the people of the host country to which you're visiting about Americans and American culture. So that kind of goes along with what the question kind of was asking. So instead of maybe continuing on these ideas of what American culture is, it was a big part of our service to teach our communities what American culture and what America really is like. So a lot of that was busting myths and teaching people about things that they had never heard of, or that they knew of but were understood in an incorrect manner or such. So that was actually one of our missions, was to teach our communities about American culture. And then the third mission is to teach Americans about the host country's culture. So it's kind of like an exchange.
Yeah, and I remember our good friend Sasha, she brought a Humans of New York book to kind of go around and show her host family, how different Americans are from one another. So.
Thank you.
And I think it's a great question, Mike. Also, I can tell you, I was a Peace Corps volunteer a long time ago, and my sister had discouraged me from joining, because those days people said, oh, Peace Corps was all about the CIA. You were just going to be an agent of the US government somehow. And I think that was particularly a concern in Latin America at that time, when there were lots of challenges. But this issue of what's an American, I'm guessing many people who are here with us today can be surprised at what an American is after what we've lived through for the past several years. We are all kinds of people, and all kinds of, just like that, humans of New York, but that's just New York. How about humans of Kansas and Indiana and Alabama and all the places that and rural and urban and college educated and not, and we are just so diverse. And I think for all of us to remember that, and even your view of Ghana, even though it meshes with my view of Ghanaians also, and all the positives, I'm sure that there are places where people have a less positive experience, perhaps. So, just remembering human beings are human beings is, but yet it is a responsibility, as Mike says, because you may be the only one they're judging from. Just saying, hey, this is just me. There are a lot of people who are calmer or more excited or taller or shorter or whatever, that it's very hard to think that you can represent a country.
No, that was very well put. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions.
I'll just chip in. I think if you look at the the normal Ghanaian or the regular common Ghanaian on the street, I think generally people have very good view of Americans in the country. In fact, they love Americans. They admire Americans. They will welcome you. And I think in that part of the world, we don't have, not many people really connect ordinary folks, ordinary Americans to the CIA and other intelligence agencies in the US. But I suppose it might be very different in places like China, Russia, and other places. But Ghana is a little bit different. I think with Ghana, what might actually be a problem is thinking that, they call them Obroni or white men. They're coming in to solve all our problems. I think that is a much bigger perception on the streets in Ghana, more than you being a representative of the government or perhaps a CIA agent. But generally speaking, even though people have this idea that, the Obroni is coming to solve all our problems, they are still very open and receptive to learning new ways to also make themselves better. And as Katerina have said earlier, they will go out of their way and help you feel welcome and never make you feel like, you're a spy or you're there to kind of cause trouble. Very nice people.
I think that was a great final comment for you, Katerina. I want to say that this was an exceptionally good presentation. So interesting, wonderful photos, wonderful sentiment. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I bet most of our, or everyone else did as well. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to lots of you visiting us for future Global Bites events, but also to spending more time with Katerina while she's at Penn Nursing. So thank you all for attending. And we are recording this. So if you have other family members and friends who weren't able to attend Katerina, you'll be able to share it. We'll have it online. And also of those of you who may want to share with classmates or country mates or anyone else, it will be online. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day and week. Bye.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for giving me this opportunity. Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming.